crashes, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis, Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts with host David Lamb and the attorneys of Hollis, Wright.
Hello and welcome into the attorneys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Got an interesting conversation. Defective medical devices. It seems like there's a new issue just about every week. So we're going to cover some of that ground, and what you need to know is the topic of conversation tonight. But as always, some ground rules of the way we like things to operate is always better when you're involved. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see ways you can call, text, email, and we would love to have you do so to join our conversation if you have any questions. Also, Hollis Wright makes available an attorney each and every Sunday night. They're standing by to speak with you. That's a free, off-air, and confidential conversation. All you have to do is call or text 844-LAW-TALK, 844-LAW-TALK, or locally in the Birmingham area, 205-324-3600. So whichever one is a better fit for you, would love to hear from you, have you join our conversation, or get in touch with those attorneys from Hollis Wright. Now tonight we're talking about defective medical devices. Leading our conversation, a partner at the firm of Hollis Wright, Carter Clay. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, David. I feel like we're missing someone.
It does. It's rarely that it's the mano-a-mano kind of show, but this is what it is.
That's right. You just got me. It's kind of a sign of the unfortunate times that we're in with COVID-19. Obviously, we want to be safe and secure, not only for the people that are helping us produce the show, but for you and I and also our guests. And we're not quite at a point yet to where we're having guests back on the show. So you've got me tonight.
Good.
One of the great things about the show that I personally enjoy is having guests on the show, other lawyers in the community that have a different practice from what we practice and can impart knowledge and information and empower the viewers in those particular legal areas. Because as you know, we are a personal injury firm. We handle wrongful death cases, product liability cases, automobile accident cases, trucking cases, some medical malpractice cases, nursing home cases, but there are a lot of legal practice areas out there that we don't handle. And I really enjoy having the guests in the community come on the show and talk about bankruptcy and divorce law and criminal law and those types of things, because it's very educational for us, and it oftentimes helps us when we're trying to guide and direct our clients who may need a criminal lawyer or a divorce lawyer, and gives us a referral source. So I'm really disappointed that we're not able to be at a point to where we can have guests back on the show, but I'm very fortunate that we're back and that I'm here with you, and I hope you've been safe and healthy throughout all this pandemic's just really crazy times that we are in right now. But I think we're going to emerge from this hopefully sooner rather than later, get to the other side and kind of get back to some sense of normalcy here soon.
Yeah, it seems like we're trending in that direction. Just hope that continues and we all do what we can.
Absolutely.
So while a number of things, due to all the kind of the craziness at the time in which we're living, things kind of stopped happening. A lot of businesses shut down for a little while, all of that. Cases and people getting injured, while they may not have been as much, that still happens, and that still happened. And even relative to what we're talking about in the medical devices, you know, if it's a defective product, it's going to go bad whether there's, you know, everything's shut down or not. So are you guys still seeing these kind of cases?
We are, but quite frankly, because the entire United States, world in some situations, was shut down across the entire spectrum of the types of personal injury or wrongful death incidents that we would see, there has been a dramatic reduction in all of the above. One of the things that has been interesting about this is that individuals' impulsive reaction because of the news reporting is that hospitals are busier than ever. And while that may be true as it relates to COVID-19 and the treatment of people suffering from the virus, it's far from the case as it relates to some surgeons, neurosurgeons, orthopedic surgeons, and other medical disciplines, because they suspended all of the elective procedures. You probably heard about that. So there were a lot of orthopedic surgeons and other types of surgeons out there who had a dramatic decrease in the amount of surgeries and procedures that they were performing. And because of that, obviously they're not using the medical devices and medical instruments and medical implants as much as they would be. But yeah, we're still seeing some of that out there right now. But again, we hope we're going to emerge from this and we'll start to see an uptick in those types of elective procedures. Obviously, we don't want people to receive defective products, but that just happens.
Yeah. So from a jumping off point, help us understand what we're going to be talking about tonight. When you say medical devices, what are we talking about, and if they are regulated in any way and by whom?
Yeah, so when we talk about medical devices, that is a broad term for a lot of different medical tools, medical implants, and just medical equipment that might be used in a hospital setting.
Okay.
So when we talk about devices, it could involve knee implants. It could involve hip implants. It could involve stents. It could involve pacemakers and defibrillators that people have put in to regulate the rhythm of their heart and make sure that they've got a good, stable heartbeat. It could also involve Band-Aids, gauze, sponges.
Boy, it runs the gamut.
It does. It runs the gamut. And it also could involve tubes, catheters, sheaths, things that help doctors introduce implants and devices into a person's body. And it could involve scalpels, tools and equipment that the doctors use to perform various procedures. So that's really what we're talking about. It's a very broad term. The Food and Drug Administration, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, is the body that regulates the design, manufacturing, and bringing to market various medical devices and implants. And what's interesting about the U.S. Food and Drug Administration is you didn't hear the term medical devices or medical instruments in the name Food and Drug Administration.
You did not.
Okay,
yeah.
But they regulate medical devices. Also, the Food and Drug Administration regulates cosmetics, dermatology equipment, makeup, and things like that. So it's a broad governmental agency that regulates a lot of
I hope they're very large.
They are very large, and we'll talk a little bit about it, but they're underfunded and they're under-resourced, and they're not out there to be the police force for all medical devices that are out there.
So tell us, how does it work? How does a medical device achieve and receive FDA approval?
Well, there are a couple of different things you have to consider. Number one is, what type of class or device are we dealing with? Are we dealing with a superficial product like a Band-Aid or stitches or sutures? Or are we dealing with a medical implant that is going to be something that the doctor is going to put in somebody's body and leave there permanently? Because depending upon the type of device or equipment that you're talking about is going to dictate how much the FDA is going to scrutinize that product in order to be able to allow you to bring that product to market. And we're going to talk about those different avenues or processes when we come back from the break.
Let's step aside. Sure. Good time just to step aside right here. So now you kind of have an idea of where we're headed. Hopefully it's kind of stirring up some questions in your mind. We'd love to have you get those to us. We'd love to hear from you. Call, text, email, that info on your screen, or give the attorneys that are standing by a call as well. Stay tuned. We've got more of the attorneys coming right up.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis, Wright, a personal injury law firm, and thank you for watching The Attorneys. We hope you, a friend, or a loved one never needs legal counsel for a case. But if you do, the goal of the show is simple: to provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Your call to the show is free and off air. So if you have questions specific to the show or related to other accident or injury topics, call, email, or text us. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, or go to hollis-wright.com and click on the Contact Us button. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us and watching The Attorneys.
The Attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you.
When we started the show 8 years ago, my hope was we would be able to do what we do best, which is to help people answer real-world legal-related issues they have in their life.
People oftentimes are confronting various legal issues and problems in their lives that range across the gamut of legal practice areas: bankruptcy, criminal law, family law, just to name a few. And to be able to have a 30-minute platform or format to where we can just cover various legal topics once a week, that's obviously the primary focus of the show.
We love helping people. I think everyone at this firm feels the exact same way, that the reason we do what we do is to help people. And this show gives us the biggest platform possible to help as many people as we can in the community.
Welcome back into the attorneys. Before we get back to our conversation with Carter Clay from Hollis Wright, a reminder of how you can get in touch with the attorneys from Hollis Wright who are standing by live to speak with you. 844-LAW-TALK or 205-324-3600. Call, text, whatever you prefer. Those attorneys standing by to speak with you. All right, we were talking about how medical devices receive FDA approval, and continue that if you would, please, sir.
Sure, yeah. So not all medical devices have to go through the Food and Drug Administration to be brought to market. Remember when I said at the opening of the show, Band-Aids, gauze, those types of products that are used, and other types of products that are used in a hospital or medical doctor type setting, they can be brought to market because of the type of class of medical device that they are, really without going through the FDA.
Okay.
However, for those drugs that have to flow through, medical devices, and we talk about drugs as well, there's similar processes that they have to go through. But with respect to medical devices, when we talk about those types of devices that have to be run through the FDA, they're really broken down into two different categories. One category is known as the pre-market approval process, and that's referred to as the PMA process. Okay. That is the most stringent and strict process that the FDA has for evaluating medical devices and approving them and allowing them to be brought to market. There are a lot of clinical trials that they have to go through. There's a lot of paperwork involved. There's a lot of reporting to the FDA on the different phases of clinical trials that we have. We've heard a lot recently about clinical trials in relationship to COVID-19 and the vaccines. It's a similar process for medical devices and various implants that are going to go into somebody's body, that they have to go through all of these phase trials to determine the safety and to determine the effectiveness of that particular device or product. And
sounds pretty rigorous.
It is very rigorous, and if they meet those benchmarks, then ultimately the FDA will approve the product to be brought to market. Those types of products that go through the PMA process are really what I'll just characterize as your newer products, your more novel products, not a particular device or product that has really ever been kind of on the market before, but through ingenuity and innovation, a manufacturer believes they've got a good product that can help people and they want to get it to market. So it's really for the newer products. The other path or avenue is what we call the 510K process.
Okay.
And that is what is referred to in the legal world as the substantial equivalency process. Now, what does that mean? Say, for instance, it's not a new product. Say, for instance, there are other manufacturers that have put this type of medical device on the marketplace before and doctors have been using them, but this particular manufacturer has developed and wants to manufacture a variation of that existing product. What this allows the manufacturer to do is to apply to the FDA, not for approval, but for 510K clearance. In other words, they're going to clear this manufacturer to put this product out on the market. Now, what do they have to show? In this situation, they've got to apply to the FDA, they've got to provide design drawings, and they've got to inform the FDA of, hey, look, this is the product that we want to bring to market. It's substantially equivalent to these other types of products that you have already approved in the past. And because of that, we want to be kind of grandfathered in, so to speak. And the FDA will take a look at those products and devices. They will evaluate the design drawing to some extent, maybe the manufacturing process to some extent, and ultimately, if it is substantially equivalent and it meets those benchmarks, they will clear it. But it clearly is not as rigorous and strict as the PMA or pre-market approval process.
All right, so if my medical device was approved via the PMA, does that affect my potential case?
It absolutely can. Because within the FDA Act and within U.S. Supreme Court law, The approach that we seem to be taking right now legally is that if you go through the PMA process, which is a very rigorous and strict process, and the FDA kind of puts its stamp of approval on this particular medical device, approves it to go into the marketplace, if you file a lawsuit against the manufacturer of that type of product and you make certain claims like a design claim, we're claiming that your medical device is defectively designed for some reason, those types of claims are precluded or preempted by and large under the FDA Act. And the rationale is the manufacturer's response is, look, we did everything the FDA asked us to do. They fully evaluated and vetted our medical device, and they put their stamp of approval on the very design that you are now attacking. And because of that, the judicial law right now is that they're not going to allow those types of claims to go forward. It gets a little complicated. There are some exceptions to that rule of law, but by and large, those types of claims against PMA-approved products can be very difficult.
Does anyone ever sue the FDA?
No, you can't sue the FDA because that's a United States governmental agency. I mean, they have absolute immunity from those types of claims. But again, your point is well taken. It doesn't mean that sometimes the FDA did not make mistakes.
Right.
Now, a lot of times what we see in some of these PMA cases is where they say the company did not provide accurate or all of the information to the FDA.
Yeah.
So the FDA's decision was based on poor or false information, and had the FDA had all of the available information, they likely would not have approved the product. But again, those types of claims are very difficult to pursue.
Less than 30 seconds before we need to go to break, but I love watching movies, Carter. In these movies, something similar. There's always a secret email where the company knows that something is defective or there's a problem or it's not working, and they keep that hidden and secret and try to cover that up. How common does, in the cases you've seen, how common is that secret email or that thread or conversation, that whole sort of conspiracy sort of?
We call that the hot documents in the legal world, and we have a hot document location where we save the really good documents that we get from manufacturers in those types of situations. It doesn't happen often that it's truly a smoking gun that blows the case wide open, but I would say that you definitely have some really good relevant documents that you can piece together your theory of liability to help pursue the case.
The Perry Mason aha moment.
That's right.
That's what you're looking for.
Right.
All right, we've got to take our final break of the evening. As we do so, a reminder, Hollis Wright, incredible stuff on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all over the place. A great informational and educational resource. Just search Hollis Wright and you'll be able to find it there. A great follow for sure if you are on social media. Stay tuned. We are coming right back.
I'm Drew McNutt with the law firm of Hollis Wright. We often get asked what happens if someone is injured by a motorist who doesn't have any insurance coverage. In tonight's Legal 411, we will address uninsured motorist coverage. Under Alabama law, all automobile policies issued must provide uninsured motorist coverage unless the name insured rejects the coverage in writing. If you purchase this coverage and you are injured by an uninsured driver, you can make a claim against your own insurance company to compensate you for the injuries caused by an uninsured or underinsured driver. While liability insurance is required by state law, it is estimated that over 20% of the motorists in Alabama do not have any coverage at all. Uninsured motorist coverage provides you with the ability to protect yourself and your family in the event you are injured or killed by one of these uninsured drivers. If you are concerned about whether you're covered, I recommend that you check your declarations page or contact your insurance agent to discuss your coverage options. If you do not have uninsured motorist coverage, consider adding it. And if you do have it, discuss increasing your limits. Oftentimes, you can purchase hundreds of thousands in coverage for less than $100 a year. Please remember, your call, email, or text to the attorneys is free. All of us at Hollis Wright want to help answer your questions on the real issues you face. Remember, a competent lawyer will respond to every question you send in. That's our pledge and promise to you. Thanks for watching The Attorneys on WVTM 13.
Welcome back into the Attorneys. About 8 minutes remaining in the show, so if you'd like to join our conversation, you need to get on it because the clock is ticking, as they say, and the numbers to know, 844-LAW-TALK, or locally here in Birmingham, 205-324-3600. Here with Carter Clay. Let's get back to some of the questions we've got. What about defective medical devices that go through the other processes you mentioned, the 510K process? Talk to about
that's
that.
where the vast majority of the cases that we handle.
Okay.
Most of those products are going through the 510K substantial equivalency clearance process, and there is no preemption that we have to worry about there because, as I mentioned earlier, that process is not nearly as rigorous, and there's no stamp of approval by the FDA, and that's why I mentioned early on that the PMA is truly an approval process. We're approving your product, whereas the 510K process is a clearance process where they're just paving the way and clearing the way for you to be able to market your product, but they're not making any judgment as to the safety or efficacy of that particular implant. So that's where we see the type of litigation that we handle with hip implants, knee implants, hernia mesh, and other types of medical devices and products.
Just so we're clear, how would you define a defective medical device? What has to happen, or what has to go wrong, I guess, to meet that designation?
Well, really, a defective medical device is a medical device that is in a defective condition and is unreasonably dangerous. Now, your response to that might be, well, what does all that mean?
That's right.
Well, really, the way I look at it from a layperson's perspective is did the product perform in a way that is inconsistent with what a reasonable consumer would expect under the circumstances? For instance, I am litigating a case right now involving the placement of stents and balloons in an arterial system where they go in through the femoral artery and they deploy these stents. During the procedure, there is a catheter or sheath that is used that goes into the femoral artery that allows the doctor to insert these stents into the part of the arterial system where they want to deploy the stent. The inner liner of this tubing delaminated or basically came off, and the products got stuck inside this person. Ultimately, the person died during the procedure. So common sense is going to tell you, well, the inner liner of the sheath product should not have delaminated. Okay, so the question is, well, that sounds defective. Our position is that it was defective, but the response from the manufacturer is and could be, well, it may have delaminated or separated, but the question is why? And they may say, it's not our product is not defective. Maybe the doctor did something in the course of the procedure that caused that to happen. So those are the types of issues that you get into. But really think of defective condition as just being something that did not perform consistently with how you would expect it to perform.
Does this, you brought up an interesting point, because I would think the device is going to blame the person who put it in. Is that common? Does it commonly go from a medical device claim to a malpractice claim?
It does. Sometimes it's both claims that we might pursue, and we'll just kind of sort it out through discovery in terms of which direction we might want to go with it. But oftentimes you do get that interplay or finger pointing, so to speak, between the doctor or the surgeon and the manufacturer of the product.
Yeah. What types of claims are brought against a defective device?
Well, you've really got three different avenues of defects. You've got a design defect where you're basically contending that the overall design of the product was defective. Those can be the most challenging, most expensive cases because you're really attacking the entire engineering behind the product's design. You've also got a manufacturing defect, which is we're not saying the design of the product was defective. We're saying that it was not manufactured consistent with the design. Maybe the manufacturing process there was something wrong with it. Oftentimes you hear on TV about certain lot numbers are being recalled. Right. Sometimes that means for that particular lot you had a manufacturing defect. Then the third aspect is a failure to warn. Okay, we know that there's some dangers and potential side effects associated with using this medical device. The doctors or the patient were not adequately warned about those particular dangers or hazards, and because they were not adequately warned, they didn't take certain steps to guard against that defect from actually coming to fruition.
You talked, it sounds like the FDA is very involved in the approval process, and certainly the pre-approval process, do they have any teeth in terms of recalls and once something, you can tell something's going wrong, something's off the track with this product, do they have anything they can do?
Yeah, absolutely. So the typical process that's followed is product comes to market, let's say it's some type of implant.
Okay.
Doctors are using it, they're implanting it in people's bodies, whether it be a spinal implant or hernia mesh or something along those lines. Then after it's on the market for a while, they start to see what we call adverse event reports.
Okay.
That's where the patients are making complaints to the doctor or they're having some type of adverse reaction to the implant. The medical provider, doctor or hospital, as well as the manufacturer, they all have responsibilities to report to the FDA of these types of complaints that are involving injuries and deaths. And you might start out with a few, but then as the volume of complaints increases, it's going to start to get people's attention. And if there are enough complaints out there, the FDA might investigate the situation, and if they determine that there's something wrong with the product, the FDA can force the manufacturer to recall the product. Sometimes what happens though is that the manufacturer will voluntarily withdraw the product from the market before the FDA steps in. So we see both avenues.
So does the manufacturer have any responsibility to do that?
They absolutely have a responsibility to do that if they determine internally that their product is defective and not performing as it should be performing. But that is a very complicated analysis, far too deep for where we can go tonight. There's a lot that goes into that equation.
Yeah. Man, our time is flying. We've got just a minute remaining here. We covered a lot of ground, but I'd love you to just kind of a final thought in the minute remaining.
Yeah, so I guess my final thought would be we get a lot of calls from people who believe they were victimized by a defective product. And we love to get those calls, and we love talking with people and working with them through their situation. But a lot of times, the cases are just not financially feasible to pursue. These are very expensive cases. We have to hire engineers to testify and talk about why these particular products are defective. There are a lot of depositions that have to be taken. So in a lot of these cases, you really have to have a serious injury or a death to justify pursuing those types of claims. But I would always encourage people to err on the side of calling the attorney and walking through it with them.
Absolutely. Carter, it's good to see you, man.
Good to see you. Thank you, David.
Thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate Carter being with us. Appreciate you being with us as well. Hope that tonight's show has been helpful and informational to you. Well, we're going to wrap it up here, but we'll look forward to seeing you right back here next time. We'll see you then on The Attorneys. Have a great week, everybody.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.